Yeah, so moving on now to our fall tournament winners. Last week we just did our fall event winners. We got, Peter Hammond on here, our assistant scouting director in Illinois and Wisconsin. And for those of you that have been up to the Rock in Milwaukee or down in Rantoul at their big sports complex there's a very good chance that you've seen Peter. Peter runs our tournaments in Illinois and Wisconsin, so he's always at those tournaments, getting our staff there and making sure that we're seeing the right guys. So, Pete, I kind of want to turn this section over to you quick just to kind of maybe talk about some of the fall tournaments we've had or even just some of the guys that you've seen that you really like.
Yeah, no, I love the fall. It's not like the biggest, most intense tournaments, but it's solid. It's like a lot of the guys that really love baseball are there because, a lot of football players are during that time. So it's a lot of the grinders. But for me, one of the first kids that stood out to me was Howie Porath. We saw him, was that the Chicagoland showcase at
Yep.
Ozinga?
Yeah, the Chicagoland Fall ID. Yeah, and it was
Yeah.
actually just after the PBR Fall Championship took place at Kokomo in Grand Park. And I got a brief look at him there, but then I think he followed up, and you might have seen him up at the Rock. Is really
Rantoul.
where he stood at. Rantoul, okay.
It translated into game. Like the kid is just a hitter, super hitterish look. The bat to ball is well above average for the age, using the whole field, on time, can see spin. Just I really think he's going to continue to hit. And then one of my another big winner for me was Nolan Ramley. I saw him at Grand Park. Now that's a kid that has just been trending up over the past however many months since the Future Games. Really, like he kind of took off at the Future Games, hit a home run, showed well, and then he just continues to hit. And that was kind of not a worry, but like there was some swing and miss, and that was what he needed to work on the most, I would say, is polishing up at the plate.
Well, and Pete, I don't want to jump in here, but I'm going to.
Oh,
I
go
don't
ahead.
want to cut you off because I think this is the beauty of a guy like Nolan Ramley, and we don't have the luxury of this with every guy, but we've got to track a lot of at-bats on him. He was a high-level guy that came to our showcases in the winter, really stood out because he's a physical freak as far as the tools, the frame, it's as high-level tools as we have in the state. So, okay, it's a showcase, right? Like, it was super loud. Now we need to go see what's real. He's playing varsity for Brother Rice, and I think it was an up-and-down spring. And we saw plenty of his at-bats, and I think the one thing was, like, exactly what you're getting into there with the offense. Was there some swing and miss and just pitch recognition and, kind of being in between on pitches, taking the fastball down the middle and swinging at a pitch out of the zone. So we were undecided. We were like, we still need to see more. We need to see more. And he's a guy, because of the tools, because of, what he brings to the table and the ceiling, you're going to need to see that until it fails, if that makes sense. Like you're going to watch him as many times as possible and give him as many chances as possible to learn, how to hit and how to see spin and how to make good decisions at the plate. And it really impressed me at the Future Games because I thought he was on fastballs. He was on velo. He turned around that arm from Missouri in our very last game in his first at bat. It was like 91, 92, and he turned it around in a hurry for a foul ball. So the velo is not going to be the problem. Like he's going to be able to handle velo. For us, it was, man, we need to see the total package of a polished hitter. And it has really, really started to trend that way. I think it's a confidence thing. I think it's, who knows what it is, but that's what I started seeing at the Future Games. And that's what you're getting into the fall here is it's only getting better. And I just wanted to give a little backstory there, kind of how we go about it with some of these higher level prospects. And then you can continue to touch on what you saw this fall. But yeah, just wanted to get in there. So thanks for letting me cut you off.
No, I think that's perfect, and I totally agree. I think it's confidence. Like he just looks more confident in his at bats. But no, I think that kid's ceiling is super, super high. And yeah, he's got. Oh man, I would not be surprised if he keeps moving up the rankings when it's all said and done, and he's towards the top even more, just with his ceiling. But then sticking with Grand Park, Lucas Grant was just an arm that I really liked, and he's an arm we've liked for a while. Initially popped, at least for me, at the state games 2 years ago, I believe it would be. He was like low, mid 80s, maybe scraping 85, with a ton of sink, really good changeup, good breaking ball. We're like, oh, nice arm for JCA, and then he just kept going up, velo wise, pitchability wise, and he was every bit of 87, 89 at Grand Park with a good slider, and we've seen him even firmer than that in the past. But just looking at some of these other names on here, Cash Van Houten, or Van Houten, I'm sorry if I butchered that. He's just a name that is like every time we're in Rantoul, Cash is there and he's dominating and doing his thing. Real two-way prospect. Gavin, I know you probably want to get in there on him, but I just love seeing that kid play, and it seems like he's always doing it in front of us too.
Yeah, the thing with Cash, he's just a gamer. Like I think every time that we see him in the summer, in the fall, he just does it well. He does it in game. I saw him pitch at the fall tournament that I was at. He threw like a complete game. I think he ended up winning that game if I remember right. And yeah, he did, because they won that tournament too, and it was in the championship game. And I think the weekend after, Pete, you saw him do the same thing in the championship game. So at the plate too, Cash, he gets hits. He's an athletic hitter. I like how it looks in the box from the right side. I think he can play all around the infield and the outfield too. Like, he's just an athletic kid that he just loves baseball. He loves the game. He plays hard. He plays the right way. He runs the bases hard. You can tell he's competitive, and he just wants the best out of his teammates. He wants the best out of himself. So I love watching Cash play. He plays the game how you draw it up.
And he'll give us a reason here this spring, Gav, next spring in 25, to go watch Canton, Illinois, to watch Canton High School here, to see what he's all about as the future games follow. And he checks a ton of boxes. He's got a lot of good things going for him.
Yeah, Pete, and actually while I'm on Cash talking about that, I don't know if you had anybody else, and if you did, my bad for cutting you off here, but at that same tournament that I saw Cash at, I saw Dominic Panazzo, and he was not someone that I had personally heard a ton on. I know that he was a name that we kind of talked about in our rankings calls, and just he was a guy that we were trying to see because we had not seen, and we had heard some updates about him that maybe his velo had gone up or something like that. But anyway, so I get to Rantoul, and at this tournament that I was at, it was like an 8-team tournament. It was a smaller tournament. I didn't really know what to expect, but the championship game, I see Cash Van Houten versus Dominic Panazzo. Dominic Panazzo was uncommitted going into that game. The following day, he committed to Illinois State. But at that tournament, at that game, he was 89 to 92, up to 93. He showed a really sharp breaking ball that was 77 to 81 miles an hour, and he was a little spotty with command, but obviously the velo's there. He's a power arm, and he goes on and commits to Illinois State the day after. So I'm sure he had some schools contacting him previously, and he was kind of maybe had his list of schools, but sounds like the day after, Illinois State was a school for him. So that was cool to see. And obviously Cash Van Houten, who we were just talking about, I didn't mention this, but he's a 2027 that is up to 90, and he was, I think, probably upper 80s that game. I can't remember if he touched a 90, but for an 8-team tournament in the fall in Rantoul, that was really cool to see in the championship game. But if anyone else has anything to add to Dom Panazzo or Cash, feel free. Drew, I think you might have something.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you said it perfectly there for just a fall tournament and a guy like Dominic Panazzo to pop up. And I mean, he topped at 93. That's a big number there. That's kind of like the old 90 used to be. Like you see 90 all the time now, but you don't see a whole lot of 93, 94 still. So that's a big number. But what got me, because I was not there at that event, you're letting us know about Dominic and the talent and whatnot. But when you put out the video and you see the breaking ball with that velo, it's no wonder why Illinois State's taking a shot at that. Like, that looks like a back end wipeout type of guy, a guy that can come in and snap off a couple big time sliders and then have 93 behind it. So really interested to just see what his future is for Dominic there, because he is a guy that we have not gotten a ton of looks at over the last couple of years due to injury and maybe some other factors. I'm not totally sure there. But no, I think that was one of the biggest takeaways from the fall. So impressive stuff there from Panazzo.
Especially that time of year, like to be grabbing 93. I wonder what he was in the summer. Like usually the fall is kind of like arms are getting tired, arms are getting dead, everything's starting to kind of die down a little bit, and to still be grabbing numbers like that, yeah, that's pretty, like Drew said, that's a big number, especially for the time of year. So interested to see what he's going to be this spring.
Yeah, we'll have to check that out again, because at Bishop Mac too, you've got Callahan O'Connor as
Yep.
well. Really talented arm down there. So they got two arms that could make some noise for them.
Yeah. And another kid at that event that I saw, and I saw some good talent throughout that weekend, but just another guy that I wanted to mention is Ryder Annette from Dunlap. He is a 2028. He was a name I don't think he was someone that I had really heard a ton about, just being a 2028. I don't believe he had been to any events or anything like that, but coming to this tournament, he was on that Wow Factor 2028 team, and I loved the way that it looked in the box. He's a left-handed hitter. It's super loose. It's fluid, and he just has that loose wrist, easy swing. It's not intentful. He's on time, and he collected a couple hits throughout the weekend, and he played up the middle too for that Wow Factor team, and he just has the actions. And being a 2028, I don't really care about if he has crazy power or anything like that. I like that he was an athletic kid. He's left-handed, and he had some feel up the middle too. So he is definitely going to be one to watch for me moving forward here in that central Illinois area. And Dunlap has produced some talent throughout the past couple of years too. But go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, just what I love about the way you explain him is he's 2028, so he's nowhere near what he's going to be physically down the road. But at that age, we're looking for, okay, kind of like the fundamentals, right? And how does the swing work? And you mentioned like loose wrists and easy. And to me, that's a really big thing for these young guys. Like who can create bat speed and do it easily, maybe even in a smaller frame. Because that tells you they understand how to like leverage their body. And a stiff shoulder swinger that's just kind of more physically advanced at that age, like to me they don't project as well. But a guy like Ryder Renette, who's athletic with those loose wrists, and he's only going to get more physical, that swing and the way that ball is going to come off the bat is only going to get better. So those are the guys that we're really looking for and really trying to project on. And like I kind of mentioned earlier on in this call, like it's not about who you are right now as a player, especially a 2028. But we are looking at, okay, this is where you are, and this is how your body works. This is how your swing works. This is your foot speed. Then we can project on, hey, here's where we think you'll be in a few years, and then beyond that in college and so on. So I like the upside, I think, is where I'm getting long-winded there with Ryder. I really like the upside with him being a left-handed hitter and the way that swing works.
Yeah, and speaking of left-handed hitters, I'll hop in here. Anthony Chavez out of Mount Carmel was maybe my favorite bat this fall. I just feel like he's really starting to come into his own at the plate. Very mature approach for a kid that age. I don't really ever see him chase up there at the plate, and he really seems like he goes up there with a plan. And it's, hey, if I get this pitch, I'm hacking. And when he makes contact, it's loud. He's got a ton of pop. So really like Anthony. I really liked him this spring when I saw him. I think I saw him once or twice this summer, and it's another kid who just continues to get better. And then one of his teammates, Logan Fernandez, another guy out of Mount Carmel. This kid is really, really toolsy. Just some numbers of what he did at our state games this summer. He ran a 6'4", 160. He was 87 from the outfield and had a 97 mile an hour max EV. He's long been a toolsy kid. I think what's encouraging with Logan is the actual in-game product is getting better and better. When I saw him this fall, just really loved the approach at the plate. I felt like in the past, there was maybe a tendency to be a little passive up there, and then when I saw him this fall, it was pure aggression. Hey, if I'm ahead in a hitter's count, I'm going to make something happen here. And then in the field, he can cover a ton of ground out in center field. So I'm just really encouraged with Logan Fernandez's overall game.
I have a couple things here just listening to you talk, Tyler, and starting with Anthony Chavez. When we were at the Future Games, I like to get to know those guys in the dugout, have conversations with them. We had multiple Mount Carmel guys there. And I don't know if you were there for that conversation, but we were just asking, like, hey, who are some guys at Mount Carmel that maybe we need to know about? Or somehow it got brought up that their team last year, a lot of the guys vouched for or brought up Anthony Chavez's name as who was like their best hitter throughout the spring. And that's a team that has a lot of good players on it. I know TJ McQuillan was injured for some of the year, but it sounded like Anthony Chavez, as a sophomore, had a great spring for them. His own players are vouching for him. I think that's always a good sign. So that's kind of a shout out to college coaches. If you're looking for a left-handed bat with some juice in there and more to come, Anthony Chavez. And then listening to what you said about Logan Fernandez, like, it just reminds me of kind of what I said about Nolan Ramley. When a guy's got that big of tools, when they run that good, and that speed shows up every day, whether it's in center field or on the bases, like, you're gonna wait and you're gonna track as many at bats as you can, to find out if this guy can hit, or will he ever hit, or will it continue to get better, more polished, or whatever it may be. Because saying if a guy will ever hit, that's probably not the right way to say it. But I've continued to see Logan Fernandez get better. It has been inconsistent. It has been up and down. Like, it is what it is, but it's been trending much, much better recently. I've seen less swing and miss, and then the impact that I do see off the barrel tends to be very loud. And he can backspin the baseball. And if it's a true center field profile, there's a lot to like there and a lot to just continue to track.
Yeah, and one thing, so before we kind of move on, Hammett, you mentioned some guys that you saw at the Grand Park Fall Championships. And actually, so we had a podcast maybe a month and a half ago, right after that event, where we talked through, and I believe Josh Fields, one of our Wisconsin guys, was on that podcast as well. And they all talked through guys that they had seen at that event. So if you are wanting to hear more about some of those Grand Park Fall Championships guys, just be sure to check that out. We really dug into a lot of the guys that they saw that weekend, and it was a really good tournament. It always is one of those better tournaments.
Hey, Gav, if people are interested in where to check that out, where should they go? Is that a Prep Baseball Illinois page there? Should we send them to the JUCO page? Should we send them? Yeah.
On our YouTube, you can check out our Prep Baseball Illinois YouTube to check out our podcast. But yeah, there should be an article that Hammett had posted right after that event, and they did a takeaway story of all those players from that event. So a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, if anybody's ever, if we mention former articles, stuff we've done in the fall, and you're interested where to find this, just go to the Prep Baseball Illinois page, and there is a news tab that you can click on news, and you can break it down by month. It has all the news articles that we've released. So, for anybody out there that listens, that's curious with some of the more follow-up and written content that we do, and wants to read about some of this stuff and not just listen all the time to the podcast or whatever, check out the website. We got all kinds of different articles on there, and just wanted to call that out, Gavin.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.